US soccer should stop trying to emulate Europe and do something unique, American, something that is very specific to the American culture. Three things can be achieved. Number one, American kids can be uh, enticed to actually play the sport their way and not some other people's way. Second, people would embrace the sport as their sport. And third, it would be a huge success commercially and on the field. This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's June 10th, 2021. This is Krim Delco. Since the last update, June 6th, we are up about 4.5%. We are now down 12.1% for the year. The market is up 13% for the year. We're underperforming by 25.1%. We are, as we speak, we are in Frisco, which is next to Dallas. My son is training here. He's doing a goalkeeper camp, and this is a very special place. We're staying actually at the Dallas Cowboys training complex here in Frisco, and it's just very clear how successful the marketing and merchandising of this franchise is, given the fact that the actual team isn't even that good on the field, meaning at least not from a results perspective. So this is a good example of somebody taking on a sports franchise and turning it into something exciting, and it's even transcending the success on the field. The idea that you have to be successful on the field is obviously highly related with any kind of sports franchise, but the Dallas Cowboys are a good example of a situation where even with a lack of success on the field, you can create a franchise with careful marketing, with careful also trying to be unique, building an innovation stack around this franchise. This is what they've done. The name of the owner now eludes me, but it doesn't matter. It's just a very good job on any front. You can see this here, even in this training complex. Everything is carefully crafted and just geared towards excitement, entertainment, and you don't really care about the actual performance on the field anymore. It's so exciting, and of course the performance and the quality of the play is very high. This is a top NFL team, but I guess when it comes to the last a couple of inches, a couple of seconds that really matter when it comes to winning trophies, that's where they're a bit sort of behind. But that's not the point here. The purpose of this podcast is to give people a sense for what it feels like to run a hedge fund. We have spoken about Orange Capital Partners and our attitude towards finding unique situations around which a principal stack can be built, an innovation stack can be built, and therefore a compound return on knowledge, know-how, strategic directions, all these things compound into wealth generation. This is in a nutshell how we operate. And I want to use US soccer as an example of how I think a sport can be transformed into something exciting and successful. There's a quote by Vitalik Buterin recently. He spoke about Elon Musk, and he said something very stuck in my head. He said it looks like Elon Musk thinks that maximizing for entertainment value will eventually also maximize for wealth or success. And I thought it's of course a very sort of nerdy way to say that if you look for the highest possible entertainment value in a situation, of course, given certain constraints, you have a good chance to succeed. The constraints, of course, are always the same when we talk about entertainment. We cannot become too violent or too pornographic and things like that, because that seems to attract humans even more than anything else. So you have to find a way to be entertaining without those things being prevalent in what you're doing. And I think the Dallas Cowboys are a great example of an excitement being built around the sports franchise. And I think you can build anything exciting. Like Tesla is an exciting brand. Apple used to be exciting. Things can be exciting, and Google used to be exciting in the early days. So this excitement around brands, this excitement about things can be built. And I want to use the example of US soccer because I'm involved right now with my son, and I can see the flaws, and I have also a solution for how to make U.S. soccer a lot more successful than it already is. So I think the problem with U.S. soccer is the following: U.S. soccer is trying to emulate Europe. You can look at, across the country, and there's so many clues. First and foremost, the names of the clubs: FC Dallas, Real Salt Lake, Sporting Kansas City. All these names, they allude towards clubs in Europe that have similar names. Sometimes they're even franchises that are related, and that's one thing which sort of in the name you can already see that, let's say, FC Dallas tries to be like another FC, maybe FC Bayern München, because FC Dallas actually works with Bayern Munich. So this mimicking of Europe is prevalent in the names. Also, when you talk to people in almost any big club here in the U.S., the question is always they always talk about, like, oh, we brought this guy from Manchester United, we brought this guy from Barcelona, this guy's from Sevilla, this guy's from this guy's from that. So they're bringing in these people and they're trying to emulate their culture and their way of playing into the US here. And I think that is the fundamental problem. I think the US is not very good at emulating other people's culture. And that's why US soccer is suffering. And the solution is to try to not emulate other people's culture, but actually incorporate the US culture into soccer. What I mean with that is, in particular, you take American football and you take some of the positiveness from this sport, some of the good things of the sport. For example, the specialization of tasks. In football, it's very extreme that every position almost has their own coach, their own practice schedule, their own everything is very sort of compartmentalized and very specialized. And soccer is not played like that. Soccer is played and trained and practiced always in a team, always the rondelle, the touches, the this and that. And I think while that is, I would preserve, of course, a lot of that, but I would still try to bring a lot more specialization. There should be a fullback coach. There should be a winger coach. There should be a 6, an 8 coach, a 10 coach. There should be, of course, there's already a keeper coach and a keeper training and practice. That's already specialized. The center back, all these positions in soccer should be a lot more designed and crafted more carefully. I think that would be one thing. I think dominance also, let's say, you could have play calls like in football, and to me that's a big enigma why we don't have that already, because that would be such a great addition to the sport. So these are two ideas of how I think American soccer could become really American, because Americans really are only good at two things: either they're the underdog or they are the dominants. And the underdog, we've seen the underdog, let's say Revolution, George Washington, the Red Coats, all that. And the dominance, we've seen that movie since 1945. The US has been dominating the world stage and also a lot of sports. And I think that, to me, is sort of where US soccer should be going. So what I mean with that is, you should have, first of all, you shouldn't call it clubs. You shouldn't say, club here, club there. I think it should be the franchise. It should be the team. This idea of clubs, again, it's a European import into the U.S. It just sounds weird, because we talk about the country club, we talk about the Harvard club in New York, but we don't talk about clubs when it comes to sports. We talk about teams and franchises. Which team do you play for? And then the league. Again, the league, that's something that is somewhat European also, because in the US we don't have leagues really. We have we kind of have leagues, okay, the NFL and things like that, but they're not really called leagues. These are franchises. Again, these are brands in their own. The NBA, the NFL, the MLS is trying to become that kind of brand, and it's not really a league. It's something else, and I think all these patterns, all these things should be thrown overboard, and we should start with a clean slate and Americanize the sport. Call it MLS or MLS Next. They're doing some of that, like let's say in the youth sports complex, there's MLS Next, which is sort of the highest level of youth sports, and then again call it teams, don't call it clubs, then call it and then specialize. So I think that would be a lot more successful, and I think it's a good example of something where I think we need to take a risk. For example, create a team that has coaches from the European soccer culture, but also bring in U.S. football coaches, maybe basketball, baseball for sure. Baseball has a huge tradition in statistics. I think that's another innovation that can be very useful for soccer. People are using that. It's not like none of that is happening, but I think it could be a lot more explicit here in the U.S. And you could have teams like, let's say, particularly Dallas, this Texas sports culture. If you could embrace that, if you could take that energy, that seriousness that they have, it how they look at, let's say, high school football, and just emulate some of that in the soccer culture, I think you could have a lot more success. The kids would be a lot more drawn towards the sport, and therefore you had a lot more talent. It would be a lot more successful also commercially, and therefore everything would sort of turn into this flywheel, and the US would have a good chance of winning the World Cup, and probably in the next 8 years already, because once you unleash that energy, once the US industrial complex starts working and creates a franchise like that, I think nobody could stop it. Thank you.